Welcome to Sense of Style. I'm Stuart. 8 fragrances with a cult following. And of all the hobbies that I've ever gotten into, I'm a big hockey fan, huge movie fan. I've never seen anything like the level of devotion to something so specific as a fragrance in my life. The level of cultish behavior in the fragrance community is absolutely insane. I remember when I first started collecting, I heard about people spending $400 for fragrances, and Aventus specifically, and then I got in a news group and people were going off on one another about, I prefer fruity batches, I prefer woody batches, and then they started arguing about which cologne was the best, and I remember thinking, what's going on here? Now I'm one of those people. Now I get it. I really think it's because the sense of smell is so closely aligned with the emotional centers in our brain. I think once you get really into a fragrance, it becomes a part of who you are. It becomes really important. So you see a lot of cultish behavior, people really loving something that maybe others don't like. But the one thing about a cult fragrance is nobody coalesces around a bad fragrance. These are all really good fragrances. Fragrance number 1, this is Armani Acqua di Profumo, and this fragrance did not have to be a cult fragrance. It got discontinued, probably the most popular fresh Armani fragrance among fragrance collectors. They discontinued it, and they brought back the Parfum, which has been nowhere near as popular. And now, in order to be in the cult, you have to pay like $250 just for a smaller bottle of this. And now there really is cultish behavior around it. If you ever want to create a cult, just could discontinue a really popular fragrance, and then you've done it. And Armani, they're really good at it. I don't know why they keep discontinuing stuff, but anyway, this thing is fantastic. It is definitely different than the new Parfum. The main difference is the incense note, which makes it a touch more masculine, has a little bit of a bite to it, and it also has a magnetic cap. These are small things, but they add up to a lot because this one people are searching out, whereas the Parfum, I don't hear anything about it in the fragrance community. It kind of fell flat. So, fragrance number 2, this is Ambre Sultan by Serge Lutens, and this house is a cult house, except for Serge. Serge is the very first Serge Lutens fragrance I ever heard of. It's very popular. You still hear about it from time to time. And it's not a cult, but the rest of the house, it's underrated. It's underappreciated. The people that know about it, like myself, love it. I have 2 fragrances aside from Serge, and they're both better. I really like them. This is my favorite. This is, as the name would suggest, an amber-based fragrance. It's got a lot of like warm resinous notes. So there's a generic resin note. There is actual amber. There's myrrh and benzoin. So very warm. It has an aromatic accord that it's nowhere near as prominent as the amber accord, but it is there. So it's got myrtle, oregano, bay leaf, and angelica. All of those are either herbal or green notes. So there's a little bit of that, but it's really the ambery portion of it that it's just magnificent. But you don't overlook this one. Fragrance number 3, this is Dior Farenheit. If you're a younger person, millennial or Gen Z, you're probably thinking, well, yeah, it's a cult fragrance like for older guys. But the thing about Farenheit is it's so different and so weird that it was kind of a cult fragrance even in the late 80s and early 90s. It's a very innovative style of fragrance because it's ozonic. It first started with Green Irish Tweed by Creed, which took a citrus fragrance and added tons of violet leaf to create an ozonic feel. Ozonic, think of ozone, think of light, like an airy. So it was the very first sort of mass appealing, airy citrus fragrance. 3 years later, Dior did the same thing, but with leather. And if you get the right amount of violet leaf, you create that perfect ozonic effect. You can come up with some masterpieces. One reason everyone likes Burberry Touch, this came out in 2000. It gets views all the time when I talk about it. It's ozonic pepper. So if you get ozonic right, it's very different. Now this, so this is basically a lot of violet leaf and a lot of leather. There are other notes, but the mix is just right. but it's different. And if you like it, you're going to love it. And I love it. And I know there are some other guys out there that do too, but definitely a cult fragrance. Good performance as well. It is, after all, a Dior. Fragrance number 4 is Azzaro Visit. Now, this isn't exactly a cult fragrance, but it is the closest thing you're going to get. And it's quite close to a super cult fragrance called Gucci Rush. It came out around the 2000s, super popular. Then it was discontinued. It was actually an inexpensive fragrance at the time, and now the best price I could find was $255 for a bottle of Gucci Rush. And this thing is actually quite similar. Now, it's not exactly the same. This is a little bit more ambre, so a little bit sweeter, but it is very similar in a lot of ways. I got it, and to be honest, I really wasn't super impressed at first. The bottle I liked. The atomizer is really crazy. You have to press this thing here, and so it's really kind of awkward. So I didn't like that. The opening it's okay, and the projection early on it's all right. And I was just like, I put it on, and I was walking around. I was thinking, well, it's just like every other $40 fragrance. But after a couple of hours, I smelled my hand, and I'm like, I get it. The dry down was fantastic. The opening was, kind of generic. The dry down was great, and I'm sure that's the closest that it comes to the Gucci Rush vibe. I was kind of thinking, like, what's the big deal about it? That dry down really, really cleared it up for me. Now, it is a woody, spicy fragrance, so if that sounds appealing to you, you might like it. There's Gaiac wood, there's a little bit of incense, there's some cedar, so it's a little smoky, but mostly it's just spicy. I get pink pepper and nutmeg. Just comes off really nice, which, and I do think it's worth it if you do like woody spicy, if that's your kind of thing. Fragrance number 5 is Moschino's Toy Boy. This is a fragrance that was always meant to be a cult fragrance. This is one of those fragrances I've had people in the comments say, I've had at least 3 people go, Toy Boy is a masterpiece. And I've had at least the equal number of people go, oh yeah, I just can't wear it. I tried it. I wanted to like it. It was hyped up. No, it's disgusting. It's not for me. So yeah, definitely polarizing fragrance. I'm somewhere in the middle. So what it is basically a rose fragrance, but not your typical sweet designer rose. You're talking about rose with 3 spices, one of which is cloves. So it's very pungent. So a very pungent, spicy fragrance. It's a little bit musky. There's cashmere in this as well. So yeah, just be careful with this one. The one good thing about it, though, might not be good if you don't like it, is the performance is amazing for a designer fragrance, but definitely a cult fragrance was always meant to be one. Next up, we have SJP Stash from Sarah Jessica Parker. I am a member of this particular cult. I love this fragrance. It is very, very different. So it is a woody fragrance, but the key woody note here is Masoya wood. Masoya wood comes off as milky and creamy. And when you think of wood, you tend to think of dry, like very dry. So there's a creamy, woody element to this with the Masoya wood. There's also cedar and vetiver in it, but the Masoya wood really kind of is more prominent. The opening in this is actually quite nice. You get olibanum and black pepper. So that's kind of a fresh, sparkly opening. Olibanum can really make a fragrance. That dies down after half an hour, 45 minutes or so, and then you're just left with the Masoya wood, which I still like. The performance is pretty much what you expect from, a $30, $40 fragrance. It's nothing to speak of. Projection is fine. It's a woody fragrance, so you're not going to get 6 feet of projection. You're more likely to get 1 or 2, but projection is fine. I really do like it, though. It's definitely a love it or hate it fragrance. As for comparisons, this has been compared to Santal 33. No way. It's also been compared to a couple of other fragrances that I'm like, oh, one of them was a Ben Fumé? No way. This thing is its own thing. Next up, we have Armani Code Absolu. And this is another huge mistake by Armani. The people in the fragrance community that know their stuff, they love this. This was an absolute legend. And they discontinued it. Now it's super expensive. And people are still buying it because there is a cult-like devotion to it now. Never had to be a cult fragrance. I still don't understand what happened. Anyway, it is really good, and it's super popular. It's not my favorite Armani Code fragrance. Mine is Profumo, because I like it a little spicier. It's got a lot of cardamom. This one is sweeter. It's got vanilla and tonka, and instead of leather, it's got suede. So it's got a little bit of a sweeter component to it. It's weird, though. If I ever met Ash from Jensense, who is the godfather, by the way, if I ever met him, the one thing that I'd have with him is, like, I would ask him right away, like, what's the deal? Because twice he said that this is spicier than Profumo, and he's wrong. Now, he's never wrong, right? I don't know how many times he said something, and I've disagreed, and then I'm come around over time to agree with him. Not this one. I don't understand what he gets from this. This is definitely sweeter than Profumo, and I mean the note breakdown backs me up. But either way, that's his favorite code fragrance, and yeah, this one is a cult now. Finally, we have Noble Fig by Ferrari, and this is the cult of the fig. Now, there are other notes out there that they're not always super popular. Something like Iris, which has a certain share of the market where people like it. Something like Vetiver, again, only a certain group of people will like it. But then you've got Fig. Now, I think, I would say Iris, probably half people like it. Maybe half the people like Vetiver. It's a much smaller proportion of people that like Fig because it's a very challenging note, a little bit more so, a little bit outside the box. More like 20% of people like Fig. So, yeah, this particular one is a member of the Fig cult. And this is the very first Fig fragrance I tried, and honestly, I hated it. I hated it. This is a sort of fruitier fig. There's like either more woody fig or fruity fig. This one is more fruity. The fig leaf is backed up in this case with some mandarin to give it a little bit of fruity kick. A very strong fig. Like if you really want the heavy, heavy fig, this one you'd like. I think if I tried this today, my bottle, I decanted it all out because, yeah, I hated it so much. But, yeah, if I tried it today, I mean, I can still get the hint. Yeah, I can still smell it on the bottle. I think I would like it. But, yeah, it's a hard note to get used to. But anyway, cult of fig. So, yeah, I do think there are a lot of cults out there. And nothing wrong with that, man. Nothing wrong with that. I'm a member of a couple of them myself. Thanks for watching.